You're here on NDTV Profit, watching live coverage of President Obama's visit, and you can see actually images of the convoy, the motorcade, not the cavalcade, making its way across South Mumbai.
That's right. There's a whole number of those vehicles, including two Cadillacs. There you go. That's called the Beast. We don't know which one is the one that actually houses the president.
So there's a decoy for that as well?
There is a decoy. There's always a decoy, as we've been saying since morning. The two planes, the two choppers, and indeed the two Cadillacs as well, specially designed vehicles carrying the Indian and the US flag, as is customary on any state visit. So those vehicles, of course, will make their way towards the hotel, and from there on, you know the agenda now. We've been talking about it, but let's quickly turn our attention to what Manvi's been busy with. Well, earlier this morning, before she joined me here in the studio, she had a chance to catch up with the CEO and President of Genpact, Pramod, a familiar face to all of us here on NDTV Profit, and indeed a familiar face who represents Indian IT in many ways to the US corporates, remember, and indeed to US government. Indian business often is almost you can say it's almost represented by Indian IT to a lot of them, and so lots at stake for Indian IT in this case. So here's a special excerpt of that chat that Manvi had with Pramod Bhasin.
Pramod Bhasin. Many call him the man who pioneered business process outsourcing in India. As past chairman of NASSCOM, he has represented the interests of the Indian IT industry. So put simply, he has his finger on the pulse when it comes to issues, opportunities, challenges for the Indian IT industry. And I ask in the context of President Barack Obama's visit. But first of all, Pramod Bhasin, thank you very much for your time on NDTV Profit.
It's a huge pleasure. Thank you.
You know, we could make a big deal about this visit or play it down. Bottom line is, President Obama's visit to India, from your vantage point, and as a man who knows Indian IT industry, what does it really mean?
I hope it's a chance for him to understand who we are and what we can do, and how, in partnership with America, we can actually really make both nations prosper. The rhetoric around outsourcing, etc., in America is unparalleled. I've never seen anything like it, and completely out of control, in my view. I think it's unnecessary. I feel like standing up sometimes with a placard and telling the world, you know, jobs were lost in America because of financial crisis, not because of outsourcing. So the discussion in the political rhetoric has gone completely askew. It has to be brought back. One of the advantages of a visit is when someone comes, they get to know people, meet people, understand their perspectives. These are two great partnerships. You know, America has no greater friend than India. Perhaps UK is better. In business, it has no greater friend. Who does America want prospering? India. Politically, economically, socially, militarily. Who do they want prospering? India. And we've been great friends, and I hope this will put the agenda back on course and not take it off course.
You set me off in a couple of different directions, and I'm going to address each one of them. First off, you know, I'll pick the gimmicky one, which is he's not going to Bangalore and Hyderabad.
Yes.
So I take that as a sign of something. Do you take that as a sign of something?
You know, not necessarily, because I think the people who want to meet him will be there. I clearly think he is saying, I've come to sell as many goods and services as I can into the Indian market. I feel pretty confident that the representatives from India and our association will equally tell him that yes, this will happen as long as you keep your markets open and don't do little visa shifts and immigration shifts and all the little things which only get in the way. This is protectionism of a different norm. Even though I think it's temporary and it's related to the elections, and I think it'll pass.
But it could heighten again in 2012 when you have presidential elections. So this is now a systemic risk in some ways, because the backdrop of America is not going to change overnight. So there is unemployment, there is job losses,
yes,
there is a fragile economy.
Yes.
So this is something that the Indian IT industry perhaps is going to have to cope with continually.
100%. I think we have to cope with the reality of a new America growing at a different pace. But remember, the Indian IT industry, if you look today, is having its best quarters ever in their history. So if you look at Cognizant and Infosys and other, business processing is slower, frankly, because our impact is more immediate in terms of jobs. But the Indian IT industry is thriving because companies are saying we need to become more efficient, we'll use more of you, not less of you. That's going to continue, but we must remember that America's growth is slower than it used to be in the past. Having said all of this, the fact is we also need to help create jobs in America. If we're true global companies, we do an enormous amount of business there. I can tell you certainly we would expect to triple our headcount in America over the next 2 to 3 years, and so will most companies. But let's not lose sight of the fact that this is about global trade. And either you say, yes, you believe in that, or no, you don't, and you're going to put a lot of rules and regulations, and then that's just going to lead to mutual destruction. It's not going to help anyone.
There is actually a pretty decent trade-off, that, is visible. So you let Indian IT, Indian outsourcing be,
Yes.
and in return, this is a huge market for US companies, and potentially Indian investment into the United States, that's another lever
Yes.
that works in this whole trade-off. Am I being naive when I say that?
No, it's not at all. That's exactly how it needs to work. At the end, if I may take it to a different level, it's not just about outsourcing or trade. It's about two countries forming a mutually beneficial partnership. Obama is visiting India and many other countries around here to counterbalance perhaps China, to counterbalance Pakistan, to counterbalance Afghanistan. Who is the best country that he can talk to? It's us. We form a huge part of India's economy. We've led it to growth for the last 10, 15 years. In many ways, the IT industry has put India on the world map. This is a way to make sure that our words are calm down, that the rhetoric eases up, and we focus on issues that matter as opposed to creating more noise about Buffalo versus Bangalore, which is completely pointless.
Okay, so let's assume that the rhetoric dies down for a moment, but the visa costs are not going to come down
Yes.
with with the fall in decibel levels.
Yes.
And those are real, events that are playing out that have an impact on operating costs, and
Yes.
those measures. Perhaps I'm overplaying the significance of them, but they're real. So, is there room for discussion on real things like that as well?
No, I think they're too small, quite honestly. Visa costs are there, they've gone up, yes, we don't like it, terrific.
Move on.
Ohio says no outsourcing, terrific. Ohio outsources, I would be amazed if it outsourced more than $500,000 to anyone outside America. So, great, nice statement, thank you. Sleeves off our vests, no issues.